Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There it is, so you don't miss any of our football content this season. It has been, if I might say, fantastic. Right. He's a former scout for the Eagles. Philadelphia 20, Cleveland 16. Deshaun Watson. We could go on. I mean, he's playing because the owner wants him to play, and Kevin Stefanski's taken the sword for the organization. Deshaun just can't play. But it is interesting about Philly. So they were an 8.5-point favorite today, and J-Mac was all over this. And I'm like, I'm not taking an 8.5-point favorite because Philadelphia is weird. So if you didn't watch the game, and I said Jalen Hurts was 16 to 25, 14 rushes, 264, 2 TDs. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith had touchdowns. You would think, Jesus, they look great. When I watch them, I'll get to Sirianni in a second. But when I watch Philadelphia, I feel like they leave so much on the floor, so much on the table, is that, first of all, they're not the same team without A.J. Brown. He's clearly a difference maker. Very rarely does a receiver have that kind of impact. I mean, Brandon Ayuk didn't do squat for weeks. San Francisco could still score points. CeeDee Lamb, you take him out, Dallas can't score. I mean, and A.J. Brown is really, I mean, I've never seen a coach, when he loses a player, act like Mike Vrabel did when they lost A.J. Brown. Like, Vrabel was like, okay, I can't. Remember that press conference? It's like, I can't win here. Like, it's over. And Vrabel's not somebody who loves, outspoken receivers. That's not his game. So, but 2016, I look at Philadelphia and I think the coach is screaming at fans. I don't know. I feel like the roster's closer to an A and the performance always feels like a B. Am I wrong?
Yeah, to me, the quarterback, like you said, we can get into Sirianni here in a minute. If we just use Jalen in a vacuum, well, three of the plays, he hit A.J. Brown twice on big go routes, and then he hit Devontae Smith on a big play. So what does that account for?
Yeah.
125, 130 of the
I mean,
260
those guys had
yards.
between the two 175 yards.
Yeah. So to me, he's a go ball thrower, which when all you do is throw go ball, this isn't college or high school. Those don't hit often in the pros, and
Yeah.
kind of a scramble run around guy. He cannot pick you apart in the pocket. There was one
No.
point in time today in the game where I think Vilma was like, I don't know why these fans are booing. You don't know why. It's 13-10 against the Browns. They can't move the ball, and the ball's flying all over the place. There is no rhythm to their offense. It looks very similar as it did last year. And at one point in time, I looked down at the box score. I'm like, I'd have to find a way to get the ball to Saquon even more. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes coaches, he had, when I looked down, he was like 15 rushes and he was averaging a little less than 3 yards a carry.
Yeah.
So most coaches freak out and go, this isn't working. Well, you don't have Peyton Manning or Tom Brady slinging the pill around. So just keep the Kyle Shanahan's, McVay back when he had Todd Gurley, they will stick with it because when you have Derrick Henry, eventually the guy might break a play for 30 yards, slows down the game, makes it easier on your quarterback. And I think they have been way too quick to get away from Saquon because really the only passes they're hitting are these kind of bombs down the field.
Yeah.
It's why when you remove AJ, they look even worse. I mean, if AJ obviously had been hurt like he had previous weeks, I think they lose today.
Let me give you a comp. If their defense was the Legion of Boom in Seattle, they could win a Super Bowl. Because when you go back and look at Russell Wilson's career, what we know now happened late in Seattle, Denver, and Pittsburgh. He was great with the rainbow throws over the top, or when he was moving. He had a great running back. But if you ask Russell to sit in the pocket, Pete Carroll and John Snyder and Peyton were like, it doesn't work. So Philadelphia has not had a great defense, especially in the back end. So they give up points. But for years and years, I said this Friday on the show, I was fooled. I thought Russ was engineering stuff. Let Russ cook. I bought into it. And then all of a sudden you're like, boy, when you take away that defense and Marshawn, you're like, oh no, he can't go toe-to-toe with the big guys from the pocket. If you can contain him, bring the rush ends in and just box him in. Russell's a very ineffective player. Tua is a better pocket guy than Russell Wilson. And I look at Jalen Hurts and I see a little Russell Wilson where over the top, yes, surrounded with good God, he had the best center in a decade. Lane Johnson, A.J. Brown. It's easy to look like it's you. But to your point, in the pocket, I don't trust him.
Well, that's the thing watching Washington play today. Jaden is such a better thrower standing there within the tackle box.
Yeah.
It's not really even close. Well, he's got a better arm. He's more naturally accurate. Most people thought, whenever you text people in the league when Jalen Hurts is struggling, they all go, yeah, it kind of reminds me of Oklahoma again. Kind of reminds me of the guy that everyone scouted and thought,
Yeah.
when he got drafted second round, the Eagles didn't just get questioned because they drafted a quarterback in the second round when they had Wentz. It was they took him that high. It was like, damn. And sometimes it comes out like he's not a great thrower of the football.
No.
Obviously, he throws a good go ball, but just a good thrower of the football in the pocket. We just talked about Kirk Cousins. I had Jay Gruden on the pod like a month ago. He's like, if you don't touch him, he might be the best 7-on-7 player in the league, right? Just throwing, just he's a good thrower of the football. Jalen, I don't know if he's not comfortable. It's not natural. He doesn't have great velocity on just sitting in the pocket throws, which is weird for a guy that does have a powerful arm on the loop throw. Russell had a better ball in his prime than Jalen, just throwing like an out route or whatever. He just wasn't that comfortable throwing it over the middle from the pocket because he couldn't see. Jalen's a little shorter. He's taller than Russell, but shorter than average quarterback. So maybe it's just not as comfortable seeing stuff because he clearly, when he moves, is better outside the tackles making plays. But you
Yeah.
can't run a consistent offense playing that way.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. So now it's going to be another coach or a coordinator's fault. Maybe it's just
So,
the player.
yeah, let me ask you. So, Sirianni, knowing he's on the hot seat, knowing that his sort of demeanor has been dubbed juvenile, comes in, shaves his head, at one point yelling at fans. Like it to me, it's just, bro, you're the head football coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Like it just feels like he doesn't have a self-awareness. It's almost like Baker's first couple years in the league. You knew he was talented, but you're like, dude, you're starting fires at the podium on Wednesday. You don't have to win and be the snarkiest, funniest guy at the podium. Just let other people win. And now Baker's matured, but I feel like Nick sometimes doesn't get it.
Yeah, to me, I don't know if there's a wager you can place with our friends at DraftKings, but I think he's a borderline lock to not be the head coach for the Eagles in 2025.
Yeah.
And that's not making a prediction. They're missing the playoffs, making the playoffs. Like he will not be the coach next year. Like this thing, him screaming at the fans is just in what world in a game that you barely just beat, what many consider is one of the worst transactions, not in football, in like sports history with Deshaun Watson, the quarterback, who was pretty bad today again. And you are struggling to win the game and you're screaming at the fans. It'd be one thing if he was kicking ass and they're still chanting fire Sirianni. I would get it. It's like, bro, let's cool our jets here. Now, I saw Jalen Hurts said after the game is one thing that the players talked to Nick about during the bye week was to get back to his crazy ways, get back to his roots of being emotional. He had been too, I don't know, stoic, I guess, for their taste over the beginning of this season. But if that what you're trying to get back to, like, what are we doing? I see under no scenario. I don't. This team's not winning the Super Bowl, so I
No.
just don't see how Sirianni knows what's going on. That like the head shave. What did that symbolize to you? A guy searching, a guy maybe he got a bad haircut. I mean,
Remember when Robert Saleh came in with the black beard, like darkened his beard, and it's just
yeah.
like, bro, you're on camera like 12 minutes on national TV on an NFL game every week. It did feel like you were trying to make some sort of statement, and I mean, I think we know now that Saleh, Adam Schefter reported that he was affected by the noise. I think Sirianni's affected. I think Philadelphia is probably the loudest NFL city because talk radio is so powerful in that city, and the media. There's multiple newspapers. It's a kind of a working class for a big, sophisticated city. It's it's loud, and if you're Andy Reid could shut it out, but I think it affected. I think it affects Sirianni.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for every city in America, but there can't be many places where every single person in the city, I mean, there's just nothing more important. And it's a diehard football, or I mean, just sports town where you could find the richest guy in the nicest neighborhood and you could find the poorest guy in the street and they'd all have a take on
Yeah,
the Eagles.
yeah.
And that Andy's just had a little thicker skin, obviously had early success. He's just, I mean, a much higher level guy. But I think when you're really emotional like that, in an emotional place, it's probably not a good combination. And let's face it, like some guys with more experience and who have been around the block, like Vrabel would be more equipped to handle it. Obviously,
Yeah.
Belichick, these
Yes.
guys, this is a guy that 6, 7 years ago was a position coach no one had ever heard of. And all of a sudden you get thrust into the limelight with a team that then is highly compensated, a lot of star power. It's not like this is the little engine that could. You look around, high draft picks on defense everywhere, highly paid wideout, star running back, $50 million quarterback, a GM that everyone knows his name, wheeler and dealer, an owner that is giving you an unlimited checkbook. I thought today, when it was like 13-10 and the Browns were driving, and I think it was headed to the fourth quarter, I'm like, he might have 15 minutes left for this job. If he loses this game to the
Yeah.
Browns and Deshaun Watson, and given their touchdown came off a blocked field goal touchdown, I could see Jeffrey Lurie. I don't know exactly who he would elevate, Fangio, Kellen, but I could just see him like, this is over. And Nick Sirianni honestly could have been fired before Doug Peterson if he had lost that. That was an enormous win just to keep the guy's career going, Colin.